As we were traveling along, and we were I was telling Lindy stories, and we were going along. We had gotten to a point where we were really close to getting to Colorado. And usually on trips like this and life in general, certain things happen that aren't necessarily earth-shaking, but because of the time and place it happened, you remember it forever. As we were just getting into Colorado on I-75, it was late in the afternoon, and the big western sky was made up of beautiful hues of red and orange colors that looked like they had been hand-painted in the sky just for us. As we trekked down the desolate, deserted left lane of the interstate, a vehicle that was even older than the Green Pig, probably a 1960 or 61 Plymouth, with huge fins on the back, was approaching us. It resembled a sleek Caribbean pirate ship appearing out of nowhere to overtake us, rob, and pillage us of all of our worldly goods. Piloting this craft was a hippie-type guy with long hair and a tie-dye headband wrapped around his head. As he pulled up beside us, I said to Lindy, "Get a load of this guy." We both looked at him and waved. As we did, he pulled out the biggest joint I've ever seen in my life that he had been smoking. Then he shoots us a peace sign and steps on the gas of the huge engine that's behind that Plymouth and drove off into the western sunset. He was disappeared and probably never see him again. I looked at Lindy and I said, "Lindy, we have just experienced the Colorado Kid." That scene is played out 35 years ago, and I still have the image of the kid driving off into the western sky to rob, pillage, and plunder whatever stood in his path. I have this vision implanted firmly in my mind today as if it happened yesterday. It would have been our official welcome to Colorado. Now, that was kind of, we got into Colorado, and we went from place to place in Colorado. And one of the stories that I will have to say, we're leaving off the program tonight because Howell Horton and Bobby Mercer are not here to defend themselves. And that is the story of the tiger in the barbershop. Well, we had all I wanted to find out from Bobby Mercer was everybody wants to know if the story is true. Howell Horton said the story is not true. Bobby Mercer, who was there, knows it was true. So we're not going to tell the story of the tiger in the barbershop tonight. But we are going to tell the story that Jack Maddox told me one time that I thought was a little unbelievable, and I always thought it was one of the coolest stories in the world, and we included it in the book. And it's the monster of the deep hole. I, like you, have heard some tall tales about catching fish. And having been raised in a house of a local catfish fishing legend, I can tell you that it takes an impressive story to turn my head. My father, Little Elbert Spillers, was a legend around Milledgeville in catfish fishing circles. He constantly boated fish when other guys were just getting bites. He had also heard that he also held most of the informal records for large catfish caught on the Oconee River. But even Little Elbert's world records could not match the story you're about to hear, as it was told to me by Jack Maddox, my long-term friend, confidant, and sidekick. Jack Maddox, and his sister's here tonight, Kate, is a wiry friend from Little League days with curly hair. Hell, who am I kidding? Kinky hair is more like it. He has piercing eyes and a quick smile and an even quicker wit. Jack has a presence about him that makes you listen to his stories and laugh at his will. We were sitting around the campfire one night, sipping on some Jack Daniels, when the subject of fishing, and more specifically catfish fishing, came from some of the monsters my father had caught. Jack was a good fisherman himself and admired my dad's work. He said to me, "Well, Gary, I have to tell you a story about a catfish that I once caught that would shame anything little Albert ever put in a boat." That was hard for me to fathom. But I urged Jack to tell his story. So he did and began. It was a couple of years ago when you were off at school. Bill Massey and I kept hearing stories about the big catfish that no one could seem to land. The fish's main feeding ground was the Deep Hole, a circular area of the Oconee River made by a huge bend in the river where an abundance of rock cliffs shot down into the river and above it as well. I know the place well, I confided. Jack continued. Nobody, I mean nobody, could seem to land this huge maverick catfish. A couple of hard-headed, overmatched rednecks who would not let go of their lines were drugged into the Deep Hole and never heard from again. Gary, even your dad, if he was still around, would have a hard time matching up with this monster. The stories of the carnage and destruction around the Deep Hole became rampant. So Bill Massey and me got together and plotted an unconventional game plan to go after the monster of the Deep Hole. And here's how we did it. I knew we had to get prepared in ways that we'd never done before. This was serious business. And Bill and I didn't want to become another notch in one of the monster's massive fins. The first thing we did was went down to Cordell's Farm Supply and bought 3 miles of cross-stitched nylon plow line. We left there and went down to Floyd Couch's body shop and got old Floyd to whoop the top off of a 49 Ford and cut a large, huge metal hook with his welding torch. From there we went to Joyner's Market and got old Wiley Miller to fill up 2 5-gallon buckets with cow kidneys. We were then fully prepared with the proper tackle to challenge the monster of the Deep Hole. Upon arriving at the Deep Hole, word had gotten out that we were dead serious about catching the monster and the bank was lined with spectators. We have been told that there was enough people there that day to fill up a small baseball stadium. As we were trying to unload our equipment, we had to shove people out of the way so that we could have room to work. First thing I did was send Bill out in the woods to find a stout hickory nut tree that you can't reach around. Once the tree was located, it was about a half mile from the river. We went out and tied one end of the stitch plow line to it, and the other end of the plow line was tied to the manufactured hook. We then made our way back down to the river and hooked the cow kidney on the massive hook and threw the hook into the Deep Hole. I don't know how deep the Deep Hole is, but I can tell you that a mile of that plow line disappeared into the brown, swirling, gurgling, bubbling waters of the Deep Hole. We then prepared a campfire, sleeping bags, and chairs, as did most of the spectators. All the campfires flickered into the night and reflected off the water of the Deep Hole, shining like Christmas lights in anticipation of the great one arriving. As dawn arrived and morning light rays began to peek through the magnificent hardwoods and the giant pines, nothing had happened. We and the spectators, who had dwindled down somewhat, were about to give up when he struck. When the monster struck, it was like a tidal wave that hit the Oconee River. The monster had never encountered a hook like this. Now he was irritated and pissed. When the slack finally was played out of the rope and the resulting pop and snap in the plow line slung hickory nuts and several unwilling squirrels all the way down to Wilson County, several miles down the river. The waves got so high as a result of the fierce battle being waged against the monster by old Jack and Bill, several of the spectators were washed into the raging river, never to be heard from again. We played the big fish for 2 full days, used up 3 miles of plow line, and on the 3rd day we landed him. The big cat resembled a small submarine, and the only way we could get him out of the water was for Cecil Townsend to bring his heavy-duty wrecker down to the Deep Hole and winch him out. The investment returns were immediate. There was enough scrap iron and exotic fish plugs stuck in the big fish's lips to pay for our expedition. We cut his head off with a timber saw and sold the head to a guy over in Pendale for a 2-car garage for his 2 Volkswagens. Damn, Jack, I finally exclaimed. This fish must have been huge. Just how big was this monster? Well, I don't rightly know, Jack began, but we had to quarter the fish to get him loaded on the Bill's flatbed truck, just as we were getting out of the river swamp that day. Then, because of the extra weight, Bill's truck got stuck and then ran hot and threw a fan belt. What did you do then? I asked. It was no problem, Jack said. I just went back, cut the asshole out of the fish, trimmed it up, and installed the asshole as fan belt for the big truck, and came on to the house. And as you know, the last time I saw Bill, he was still running that fish's butthole on the truck's fan belt. Bill said it beat Bob and you, and best he could tell the fish didn't need it anymore anyway.